buried beneath the ashes. The wind howled through the ruins of Delta 9 Colony, carrying the bitter smell of burnt metal and dust. Jack Rowan, a human scavenger, walked carefully among the broken domes, his boots crunching on glass and bone fragments. He had seen 100 dead worlds before, but this one felt different. There was something alive here, something waiting beneath the silence. The war between humans and the Threxian Empire had ended years ago, leaving behind ghost towns and dead soil. But rumors said that Delta 9 still held secrets, alien tech, lost DNA codes, or even survivors. Jack didn't believe in ghost stories. But credits were credits. He was here for scrap, nothing more. He lifted a twisted metal panel when his scanner beeped faintly. Organic signature detected depth. 3 meters, it read. Jack froze, his heart pounding. A life form buried under the ashes. Impossible after all these years. He dropped to his knees and began digging with his hands, throwing away clumps of dark ash and shattered glass. Minutes turned into hours until his fingers hit something cold. Not metal. Skin. A pale, faintly glowing blue hand reached out, limp and still. Hey, you're alive? He gasped, brushing away dust from the small figure. It was a girl, barely 16, maybe younger, her skin luminescent under the fading light. She had strange markings on her face, like living tattoos pulsing faintly. Her eyes fluttered open and Jack stumbled back. Don't touch me, she whispered, her voice trembling like wind through broken wires. Her language was alien, but his translator picked it up instantly. I wasn't supposed to live, she said weakly. They buried me for what I knew. Jack stared in disbelief. You're Threxian, he said. Your kind destroyed this colony. The girl's eyes filled with tears that shimmered like liquid glass. My kind buried me alive because I refused to kill. For a moment, neither of them moved. The storm outside grew stronger, lightning flashing across the dead sky. Jack looked at the trembling girl and felt something stir deep inside him. Human instinct, to protect the helpless, no matter the species. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her small frame. Easy there, kid, you're safe now, he said softly. Though he knew that was a lie, because somewhere out in the storm, his scanner beeped again. Multiple heat signatures approaching fast Threxian patrols. They had come back to finish what they started. Jack lifted the girl in his arms and ran toward the nearest bunker. The ground shook as alien ships descended from the clouds, lights burning through the ash. Inside the bunker, the girl clutched his arm. They will kill you too. For helping me, she whispered. Jack grinned faintly, loading his old plasma rifle. Then they'll have to dig 2 graves. The girl looked at him, confused. Frightened and amazed all at once. No one had ever risked their life for her before. And as the walls shook from explosions above, she realized something she had never been taught. Humans weren't the monsters she had been told they were. Outside, thunder roared like the anger of gods. Inside, a fragile alliance was born between a wounded alien child and a broken human scavenger. Neither knew that their meeting would soon change the fate of 2 entire worlds, and that the truth buried with her was powerful enough to ignite another war. The escape and the secret inside the half-collapsed bunker. Jack sat beside the alien girl, his breath still heavy. Dust drifted through cracks in the ceiling, glowing faintly under his small lantern. Lyra's skin shimmered softly in the light, the strange blue glow fading in and out like a heartbeat. She looked weak but alive, her golden eyes watching every move he made. Outside, the storm was louder now, and the scanners on Jack's wrist blinked red. Threxian patrol drones were closing in, moving in a circular pattern around the ruins. He knew they would search every hole until they found what they came for. He had maybe 10 minutes before they discovered the bunker. Jack looked at Lyra and whispered, "We have to move." She tried to stand, but her legs trembled, her body still recovering from the cold grave. "I can't," she said softly. "They put a tracker inside me. They will always find me." Jack frowned and knelt beside her. "Where?" he asked. She touched a small mark on her collarbone, glowing faintly beneath her skin without thinking twice. Jack pulled out a small medical cutter from his belt. Lyra's eyes widened. "You'll die if we wait," he said, his voice steady. He sliced carefully, following the glow until a tiny metallic bead rolled out. Blinking red, he crushed it under his boot, sparks flying across the dusty floor. Lyra gasped, both from pain and relief. "It's gone," Jack said, wrapping a strip of fabric around her wound. "For now. They'll lose your signal." Lyra looked at him with disbelief, her voice shaking. "You saved me again. But why?" Jack sighed, looking away. Because I already lost everyone once. I'm not losing anyone else. For a moment, silence filled the bunker. The storm roared outside, but inside there was only the sound of two broken hearts learning to trust. Then a deafening explosion shook the ground. Dust falling from the ceiling. The patrol had found their location. Jack grabbed his rifle and helped Lyra to her feet. "Move now," he said firmly. They ran through a side tunnel, the air thick with smoke and heat. The exit led to an old mag train shaft, dark, silent, and endless. Jack jumped down first and pulled Lyra beside him. Above them, the bunker exploded, the blast echoing through the tunnels. Lyra stumbled and fell to her knees, coughing. Jack helped her up again. "Come on, kid, we're not safe yet," he said. Trying to sound calm, she looked around, her glowing eyes reflecting the tunnel walls. "Why would you help your enemy?" she asked suddenly. Jack stopped, his expression unreadable. "Because you don't look like my enemy," he said quietly. "You look like someone who's been hurt." They moved deeper into the tunnels until they reached an old maintenance chamber. Jack closed the steel door behind them and turned on a small lamp. Lyra sat down, trembling from exhaustion. Her body was covered with faint scars that looked almost like symbols. Jack noticed them and asked, "What are those?" Lyra hesitated, looking away. "They are the reason they buried me," she whispered. "They burned the mark of truth on my skin." Jack frowned. "Truth about what?" Lyra lifted her hand, and for the first time, light formed above her palm, a glowing hologram. It showed a massive ship orbiting a blue planet. "That's Earth," Jack said in shock. Lyra nodded. "They said humans were a mistake, that your world should never have existed." Her voice trembled. "But my father was a scientist. He discovered something. Humans and Threxians share the same origin." Jack's eyes widened. "You mean we're related?" Lyra nodded again. "Our ancestors came from the same seed, the same stars. But the Threxian High Council erased that truth. They called it corruption." Jack took a deep breath, trying to process what he just heard. If what she said was true, then the war, the hatred, the bloodshed, it was all built on a lie. Lyra looked at him with guilt. "My father tried to tell the truth, they executed him. And they buried me alive with his research. I was supposed to die so no one would ever know." Jack clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. All this time, all those people, killed for nothing. He looked at her, determination in his eyes. "We're getting off this planet, Lyra. And we're telling the truth." She shook her head, frightened. "You can't fight the Empire." Jack smiled faintly. "I'm not fighting alone anymore." Suddenly, the tunnel lights flickered. Motion sensors had been triggered. The drones were coming again, their mechanical voices echoing through the pipes. Jack grabbed his rifle and loaded the last power cell. He looked back at Lyra. "Stay behind me," he said. She nodded, her eyes glowing brighter, almost fierce now. As the first drone appeared in the tunnel, Jack opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the darkness. Lyra raised her hand and the marks on her skin began to glow. A pulse of blue energy rippled through the air, short-circuiting the machines instantly. Jack turned to her in disbelief. "You can do that?" She looked down at her hands, frightened by her own power. "I don't know how. It just happens when I'm scared." When the last drone fell silent, smoke filled the tunnel. Jack lowered his weapon and looked at her. "Well, that'll come in handy," he said with a tired grin. Lyra managed a small smile for the first time. The kind of smile that carried both sadness and hope. Far above them, the Threxian command ship received the final distress signal from the destroyed patrol. A cold voice spoke. "Subject 17 has escaped. Initiate planetary lockdown." And as alarms began to echo across the dead world, Jack and Lyra disappeared deeper into the tunnels, unaware that the galaxy had already begun to hunt them. Hunter becomes the hunted. The tunnels stretched endlessly beneath the ruins. Dark and cold like the veins of a dead world, Jack and Lyra moved slowly, guided only by the flickering light of his old lamp. Every sound echoed, dripping water, shifting metal, the faint hum of forgotten machines. They had escaped the drones, but both knew the Threxians wouldn't stop searching. Jack glanced back at the girl, her face pale but calm. She walked barefoot, her steps silent. Her glowing eyes alert. He could tell she was still weak, but there was something powerful about her, something that didn't belong to a child. Maybe that was why they feared her so much. "We'll rest soon," Jack said quietly. Lyra nodded without speaking. She looked around the tunnel walls. her fingertips brushing strange alien markings carved into the stone. "These are old," she whispered, "before the war. Before your kind or mine ever came here." Jack frowned. "Before both of us?" She nodded. Yes, this planet was once a sanctuary. Not a battlefield. Her words made him uneasy. He had grown up believing Threxians were monsters, destroyers, nothing more. But every step beside her made that lie harder to believe. He looked at her again and said softly, "Your father tried to tell the truth, didn't he?" Lyra nodded. He believed that peace could come if we remembered where we came from. They kept walking until they reached a large sealed door covered in rust and alien moss. Jack wiped the surface clean and found a faint emblem. A human insignia. He froze. "No way," he whispered. "This is human tech." Lyra looked confused. "Your people built here too?" Jack nodded slowly. A long time ago, maybe during the first expansion wave, he connected his power cell to the control panel. Sparks lighting up the old circuitry after a few seconds. The door hissed open with a low rumble. Inside was a hidden chamber. Still intact despite the centuries. Old Earth symbols decorated the walls. Flags. Mission codes, faded pictures of smiling faces. It was a human outpost buried and forgotten beneath an alien world. Lyra stepped inside, her eyes wide in wonder. "Your people were here before the war," she whispered. Jack nodded, walking toward a dusty console. He wiped the screen and saw the words Project Dawnlight, Experimental Shelter blink faintly. "What is that?" she asked. Jack stared at the logs, reading slowly. "It says, Joint research between humans and Threxians," Lyra gasped. "Joint research?" Jack nodded. They worked together once. Long before the war started, he leaned closer, his voice lower now. "Maybe your father was right. Our species were never meant to be enemies." Lyra touched the screen gently, tears welling in her eyes. "They erased all of this from history," she said. "They made us believe peace was impossible." But before she could say more, the sound of distant footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Jack turned instantly, grabbing his rifle. His scanner blinked red, multiple heat signatures closing in fast. "Threxian hunters," he muttered. "They found our trail." He looked at Lyra. "Hide behind that console and don't make a sound." She hesitated. "What about you?" Jack smirked faintly. "I'll distract them. Humans are good at that." He crouched behind a broken pillar, aiming his rifle down the tunnel. The air filled with the metallic growl of approaching machines. 3 Threxian hunters entered, their armor black and sharp like shadows. They spoke in low voices, scanning the area. One of them stopped near the console where Lyra hid. Jack's pulse quickened, his finger tightening on the trigger. Then suddenly, one hunter turned his head toward the human insignia on the wall. He hesitated for a moment, whispering something that sounded almost fearful. Jack didn't understand, but Lyra did. She mouthed silently. "They know this place." The hunter raised his weapon. Pointing it at the console, Jack fired first. The plasma shot hitting the wall behind them with a blinding flash. The hunters scattered, shouting in their alien tongue. Lyra screamed as energy bolts flew past her. Burning the air, Jack rolled behind cover, firing again and again. The smell of ozone filled the room. "Sparks flying from broken panels, Jack," Lyra cried, her hands glowing with faint blue light again. "Don't!" he shouted. "They'll track your energy." But it was too late. The light burst from her palms like lightning. A shockwave rippled through the chamber, throwing the hunters backward. When the smoke cleared, the air was still. Jack looked at her in shock. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, her hands trembling. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I just wanted them to stop." Jack walked to her slowly, lowering his weapon. "They stopped," he said quietly. "And you saved us again?" She looked down, frightened of her own power. "I don't even know what I am anymore," she said softly. Jack smiled faintly. Maybe something new, something better. Before they could rest, the console beeped again. The last recorded message flickered to life. A human scientist's hologram. His voice was weak but calm. "If you are seeing this, it means Project Dawnlight failed. We tried to bring peace between species, but the High Council ordered our destruction still. We succeeded in one thing. Our children will carry both legacies." Jack and Lyra exchanged stunned looks. "Our children?" Jack whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "That means there were hybrids. Half human, half Threxian." The hologram faded, leaving only static behind. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jack said quietly, "Maybe that's what they fear the most, not war, but unity." Above them, alarms echoed again. Distant but growing louder, more hunters were coming. This time in greater numbers. Jack turned off the console and looked at Lyra. "We can't stay here," he said, "but now we know what they tried to hide." Lyra nodded, determination in her eyes. "They buried me because of this truth," she said. "But they can't bury it forever, together." They packed what little supplies they found. Maps, data chips, a small generator as they left the outpost. The door closed behind them with a metallic sigh, and for the first time since the war began, a human and an alien walked side by side, not as enemies, but as something greater. Two survivors carrying the forbidden truth that could rewrite the history of the galaxy. The blood signal night fell heavy on the ruins. A cold wind crawled across the dead land, whispering through broken towers and shattered domes. Jack and Lyra moved under the pale light of two moons, their shadows long and lonely against the dust. They had left the tunnels behind, but danger followed close, silent and patient. Jack checked his wrist scanner. Power levels were low, and the map flickered with static. Lyra walked beside him, wrapped in his old jacket, her glowing skin dimmed to hide them from the sky. She looked tired, but her eyes carried a strange fire, something between fear and faith. "Where are we going now?" she asked softly. Jack pointed toward the horizon. "There," he said, "that black tower, if we can reach it. We might find a comm link strong enough to send a message to the human fleet." Lyra looked at the tall spire in the distance, half buried in ash. "That's not a human tower," she said quietly. "That was Threxian territory once," Jack nodded. "Then maybe it still has power, and if it does, we can use it before they find us." They walked for hours through silence and cold wind, each step sinking into dust that once was a city. Old bones and melted helmets scattered everywhere, silent witnesses of a forgotten war. Finally, they reached the base of the tower. It rose like a black spear stabbing into the clouds, smooth and ancient. The door was sealed by layers of alien script glowing faintly blue. Lyra stepped closer, her fingers tracing the marks. "I can open it," she said softly. "It recognizes my blood." Jack hesitated. "Your blood?" She nodded, pulling a small blade from her belt. Before he could stop her, she pricked her finger and pressed it against the door. The symbols came alive, lines of light spreading upward until the whole tower trembled. With a deep groan, the doors slid open. Inside was darkness mixed with cold air that smelled of dust and metal. They stepped inside slowly, the floor lighting up beneath their feet, rows of consoles, cables, and broken screens stretched into the shadows. "This was a command relay," Lyra whispered. "It could send messages across half the galaxy." Jack looked around, impressed. "Then this is exactly what we need." He powered up one of the panels using his generator. The system hummed weakly, ancient circuits waking after centuries of sleep. Lyra stepped forward, touching a crystal terminal. The interface recognized her instantly, symbols flooding the screen, but then the tower reacted strangely. Red lights flashed, sirens wailed softly, and a deep mechanical voice spoke in Threxian tongue. Lyra froze, her face pale. "What's it saying?" Jack asked, she whispered. "It's not a comm link anymore. It's a beacon, and my blood just reactivated it." Jack's heart sank. "You mean—" "Yes," she interrupted. "It's sending a signal to the Threxian High Command." Jack cursed under his breath. "Then we just told them exactly where we are." The tower vibrated violently, energy surging through the floor. Holograms burst to life around them, showing star maps, fleet routes, and encrypted codes. Among them, Jack saw something that froze him in place. Images of Earth, glowing red with target markers. "They're planning another invasion," he whispered. "A full assault." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help." Jack grabbed her shoulders gently. "This isn't your fault. They built this trap centuries ago." The tower's alarm grew louder, echoing across the wasteland in the sky above. Red lights blinked, ships descending through the clouds. The Threxians were coming. Jack turned back to the console, frantically typing through the alien symbols. "Can you reverse it? Turn the signal into something else?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I can send a false transmission, but I'll need time." Jack raised his rifle and stood guard by the door. "You've got it." Minutes passed like hours outside. Thunder rolled and the first enemy ships began landing nearby. Lyra's fingers moved fast across the glowing interface. I'm rewriting the code, she whispered. Changing the source signature. It'll make them chase a false signal far from here. Jack fired at a drone that appeared at the doorway, sparks flying. Hurry, he shouted. Lyra bit her lip, her blood dripping onto the controls again. The system hissed and flickered and then suddenly went dark. The alarm stopped. The lights dimmed. It worked, she said weakly. I sent them to the wrong coordinates. But as she said that, she collapsed, her body trembling. Jack caught her before she hit the floor. Hey, stay with me, he said, panic rising in his voice. Her skin was colder now, her breathing shallow. I used too much energy, she whispered. The tower fed on my blood to send the signal. Jack looked around desperately for a medkit, but all he found was dust and broken tech. Outside, the night sky burned with fire as Threxian ships scanned the planet's surface. But they were heading in the wrong direction. Away from the tower, Lyra's sacrifice had worked. Jack sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. You did it, kid, he said softly. You saved us all. Her eyes opened slightly, glowing faintly golden. Not yet, she whispered. The tower recorded something before shutting down. Something old, Jack frowned. What do you mean? Lyra weakly pointed at the screen. A single line of text flickered there. Written in both human and Threxian script, the seed of origin still lives. Jack stared at the message, his heart pounding. What the hell is that? He muttered, but before he could read more, explosions shook the ground again. The tower began to crumble, its structure collapsing from the overload. He lifted Lyra in his arms and ran toward the exit as fire rained from above. Behind them, the blood tower fell, sending a column of red light into the sky. Every Threxian ship in orbit turned toward it, drawn by the dying pulse, and as Jack and Lyra disappeared into the wasteland once more, the universe took note of their survival. For the name Seed of Origin had not been spoken for 1,000 years, and its return would change the destiny of both species forever. The Seed of Origin ash fell from the sky like slow snow. The blood tower was gone, nothing left but smoke and twisted metal glowing red under two pale moons. Jack carried Lyra through the wasteland. Her body limp and cold in his arms, each step felt heavier than the last. The message still echoed in his mind. The Seed of Origin still lives. He found shelter inside the remains of an old shuttle half buried in the sand. Its walls cracked but still standing against the wind. He laid Lyra gently on the floor, wrapping her in his jacket again. Her skin had lost most of its glow, the blue light now faint as dying fire. Come on, kid, he whispered. You're not giving up now. He connected his wrist power cell to the med port in the shuttle, hoping to restart its ancient systems. A weak hum filled the air as lights flickered on, revealing faded human symbols. This ship had belonged to Earth's first explorers, the ones who came here centuries ago. On the wall were old words barely readable. Mission Dawn Light, in hope we unite. Lyra's breathing was shallow, her pulse fading. Jack looked around desperately for medical supplies, but instead, he found something strange, a small metallic sphere locked in a containment case. He tapped the panel and it opened with a hiss. Inside, a soft white light pulsed slowly. The label read, Origin Sample, Do Not Expose. Jack stared at it, remembering the words from the tower. The Seed of Origin still lives. Could this be it? He turned toward Lyra, her hand twitching weakly, her voice barely a whisper. It's calling me, she said, that light. It knows me. Jack frowned. Knows you? It's a piece of tech, not a person. But then the sphere floated gently out of the case and hovered over Lyra's chest. It glowed brighter, its light matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. Jack stepped back, shielding his eyes as the air filled with warm white energy. The sphere opened like a flower, releasing streams of golden dust that surrounded her. Lyra gasped, her body arching as the light sank into her skin. The marks on her face and arms burned brighter, shifting like living symbols. Jack shouted her name, trying to pull her away, but an invisible force pushed him back. The shuttle vibrated, its metal walls humming with strange harmony. Then everything went still. The sphere dropped to the floor. Now dull and empty, Lyra lay silent, her body glowing softly with both blue and gold light. Jack crawled to her side. Terrified Lyra, hey, talk to me, he said. Shaking her shoulder gently, her eyes opened slowly. Not golden now, but shining silver like liquid stars. Her voice was calm, steady, and strange. I remember, she said quietly. The seed was not a weapon, Jack, and it was life itself. Jack blinked. Life? She nodded. They used it to create us, both Threxian and human. Jack felt the world tilt around him. You're saying we came from the same source? Yes, she whispered, from the same seed. But the council feared what it meant, so they destroyed every record of it. And me. I was born carrying part of its code. She looked down at her glowing hands. That's why they buried me alive. Because I am the last living link to our shared origin. Jack sat beside her in silence, his mind spinning. He thought of all the years of hatred. The war, the millions dead, all because of a lie. All because someone feared the truth that humans and aliens were family. Lyra turned to him, her silver eyes soft. My father wanted to use the seed to heal both worlds, she said. But they killed him before he could. Outside, thunder rumbled across the desert. Jack looked toward the sky, seeing distant flashes, ships still searching. They'll come for you again, he said. They won't stop until you're gone. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, they will come for both of us now because the seed is awake. As if answering her words, the shuttle's console suddenly lit up, displaying a strange message. Symbols in 2 languages, human and Threxian, appeared together for the first time in centuries. It read, Hybrid protocol activated. DNA match detected. Jack looked at her in shock. What does that mean? Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. It means the seed chose us. The walls of the shuttle vibrated, holograms flickering around them, images of stars, planets, and 2 figures standing side by side in light. Lyra reached for Jack's hand, her touch warm and glowing. The seed is inside me now, she said softly. But it responds to you too. Your blood, it's part of it. Jack stared at her, confused. My blood? She nodded. Because your ancestors helped create mine. We were never separate species, Jack. We were split versions of the same life. A moment of silence passed between them, filled with the weight of 1,000 years of secrets. Then Lyra smiled weakly, a tear running down her cheek. You see why they fear me? She whispered. I am the truth they cannot bury. Jack touched her shoulder gently, his voice low but firm. Then we'll make sure the truth is heard this time. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying ash and fire across the horizon. But inside the shuttle, a new light glowed, soft and steady. Like a heartbeat of hope, the seed of origin was alive again, and it had chosen a human and an alien to carry its message. Far above the planet in the dark void of space, Threxian scanners detected the activation signal. A cold voice echoed through their fleet. Target confirmed. Retrieve the seed at any cost. And as warships turned toward the ruined world, Jack and Lyra looked at each other with unspoken understanding. They had no army, no backup, only each other and the truth that could change everything. And together, they stepped out of the shuttle into the storm, ready to face the universe that wanted them dead. Battle for the seed. The wind screamed over the dunes like a living beast. Above the dead world, dark clouds twisted as fire streaks cut across the sky. The Threxian fleet had arrived, their black ships burning through the atmosphere like falling stars. Jack and Lyra stood on the cracked ground, watching the horizon glow red. They found us, Jack said quietly, gripping his rifle. Lyra's silver eyes reflected the falling ships, calm yet sad. I knew they would, she whispered. They always return for what they fear. The seed's light pulsed softly inside her chest, each beat sending waves of warmth through the cold air. Jack looked at her. How long before they reach us? Minutes, she replied, but we can't run now. The seed chose this place to awaken. It won't move again. He frowned. Then we make a stand. She turned toward him, surprise flickering in her eyes. You'd stay and fight for me? Jack smiled faintly. Not just for you, kid. For what you carry. The ground trembled as the first ships landed in the distance. Hundreds of Threxian soldiers marched out, their armor glowing with red energy. Jack checked his last 2 power cells, barely enough for a short fight. He took a deep breath, his heart steady. I've faced worse odds, he muttered. Though they both knew that was a lie, Lyra stepped forward. Placing her glowing hand on the earth, the dust shifted, forming symbols that shimmered like fire. The seed's power runs through the planet now, she said. I can draw from it, but it will hurt. Jack shook his head. No, you've done enough. Let me handle this, but she smiled sadly. You can't stop an army with a gun, Jack. But maybe I can. The Threxians approached, their commander stepping ahead. He was tall, his armor black as obsidian, his voice cold and sharp. Subject 17, he said, his tone almost reverent. You were supposed to die, and the human will die beside you. Lyra raised her head, her eyes glowing brighter. No, she said. You killed my father, you buried me, but you can't kill what he created. Jack fired first, plasma bolts slicing through the dust storm. The Threxians fired back, the battlefield exploding in light and chaos. Lyra spread her arms and screamed. The marks on her skin ignited, sending out a shockwave of golden energy that stopped everything mid-air. Rocks floated, soldiers froze, and time seemed to break for one heartbeat. Jack stared in awe, his weapon still raised but forgotten. What are you doing? He shouted over the roaring wind. Her voice echoed like thunder. Ending what they started. The seed's light burst outward, wrapping her in a sphere of silver fire. The Threxian army staggered back, their weapons melting in their hands, but the commander stepped forward, raising his blade that hummed with dark energy. You can't destroy us, he said. You are our creation, our failure. Lyra looked at him, tears of light running down her face. Then I'll be your final one, she whispered. Jack saw what was happening. The seed's energy was burning her from within, tearing her apart while protecting everything around. Lyra, stop! You'll die! He shouted. She turned to him, her voice calm now. If I die, the seed will live and it will remember you. He ran toward her, fighting against the blinding wind, but she raised her hand gently, stopping him with a soft wave of power. Thank you, Jack, she said. You showed me what being human means. And then the world exploded in light. A massive pulse swept across the desert, leveling everything in silence. The Threxian ships disintegrated mid-air, their black metal turning into dust. The commander's scream vanished in the storm as light consumed him. When it was over, the sky cleared for the first time in centuries. Jack woke hours later, lying in a crater of glass and ash. The air was quiet, the battle gone. He looked around desperately. Lyra, he called, his voice breaking. There was no answer, only a faint shimmer on the ground where she had stood. In the middle of the crater lay the seed, now shaped like a crystal heart. Glowing softly, Jack crawled toward it, his hands trembling. He touched it, and a warm voice filled his mind. Her voice, gentle and familiar. Don't cry, Jack, I'm still here. The seed lives through me and through you. Tears filled his eyes as he held the glowing heart close. Rest now, Lyra, he whispered. You saved them all, far above in orbit. Human satellites began to detect the same signal the Threxians once feared. A message of unity broadcast across every channel. In every language, its words simple yet powerful. We were never enemies. We are one life, one seed, one beginning. The message spread through the stars like a second sunrise. And though Jack sat alone beneath the quiet sky, he knew the galaxy would never be the same again. For a human and an alien child had rewritten history not with war, but with sacrifice, and from that day onward, the name Lyra of the Seed became a legend whispered across worlds, a story of hope, unity, and the unbreakable heart of humanity, the legacy of Lyra. The sun rose for the first time in years over the ashes of Delta 9. Golden light touched the ruins, turning the wasteland into a field of glass and fire. Jack stood at the edge of the crater, watching the wind carry the last traces of smoke into the sky. In his hands, the crystal heart, the seed, pulsed gently. Alive with silver and blue light, he had buried her name into the sand with his own hands, a small stone marking the place where Lyra's body had vanished into light. There was no grave, no bones, only warmth that never faded. Sometimes, when the wind blew just right, he swore he could still hear her voice whispering through the air. Don't cry, Jack, we changed everything. Weeks passed, and the silence of the planet began to break. Human beacons responded to the strange message that had spread across the galaxy. It had reached every station, every ship, every colony. Words of unity broadcast in both human and Threxian language. We are one life, one seed, one beginning. At first, no one believed it. But then came the recordings, the images of the blood tower, the fallen fleet, the activation signal from Delta 9. It could no longer be denied. The story of the girl who was buried alive became the spark that ended 100 years of fear. When the human fleet finally arrived, they found Jack sitting beside the glowing heart. Exhausted, wounded, but alive, the commander of the rescue team saluted him. We received your signal, sir. It's spreading across every network. Even the Threxian ones, Jack smiled faintly. Good, he said. Then she did it. The seed's light spread slowly, sinking into the ground around him. Plants began to grow. Real green life pushing through ash for the first time since the war. The air smelled fresh, the wind softer. It was as if the planet itself was breathing again. Jack looked up at the sky and whispered, "You see that, kid? You brought life back to a dead world." He closed his eyes, remembering her laughter, her stubborn courage, her glowing eyes that had once looked at him with hope. And for the first time in many years, Jack smiled, not with pain but with pride. Years passed. The ruins of Delta 9 became a memorial site called the Dawn Sanctuary. Humans and Threxians rebuilt it together. A great crystal monument rose at its center, shaped like a heart, shining with the same silver light as the seed. At its base were carved the words, "Dedicated to Lyra of the Seed, the child who remembered we were one." Jack lived quietly near the sanctuary. Growing old under twin suns, he became known as the Keeper of the Seed. Children from both species came to hear his stories. He would sit beside the crystal and tell them how he once found a young alien girl buried in the ashes, and how that one act of mercy changed everything. He never took credit, he always said the same words, his voice steady and kind. "It wasn't me who saved the galaxy. It was her. She just reminded us who we were before hate began. Sometimes at night, when the stars aligned, the seed would glow again, and in its light, Jack could see her, Lyra, smiling, her eyes bright and full of peace. She would speak softly in his mind, "Rest easy, Jack. The seed grows strong now," and he would answer, "Yeah, kid, you did good." When Jack's time finally came, he sat beneath the crystal one last time. The wind was gentle, the air full of distant laughter from the children of two worlds. He held the seed close to his heart and whispered, "Take me home, Lyra." And as the light surrounded him, his body turned to dust, merging with the soil he had once fought to protect. The galaxy mourned a human scavenger and a Threxian child, two souls who defied war with compassion. And from that moment, no history book spoke of the human war or the Threxian war. They spoke of the Seed Era, a time when enemies remembered they were brothers, a time when hope was reborn in the hands of a man and a girl who believed in something greater than survival. And somewhere beyond the stars, in a place where no war could reach, two lights traveled together, one blue, one gold, forever side by side, guiding every lost traveler who still believed that kindness could save worlds.